love that it's something natural you can find on the beach that looks like a gem, but it happened through time and waves and stones and turned something made out of trash into something really beautiful. When I was a little kid, I used to always go to the beach with my mom and my grandmother, and we always looked for glass, and that was one of my favorite things to do. It's those memories of being with my family and doing things together that made me want to stay here and live here, and I feel lucky that I can do things with glass as a job. Alright, now we're heading to the Cranberry Isles where I get a lot of my glass. I came to Maine as a little baby. My family has been coming here for generations, and we always came every summer, and it was something that I looked forward to all year long. And that's why when I was done with school, I decided to move here full time. I feel like I was always planning, even as a little kid, that I wanted to be here when I was a grown-up. Yeah, I first started making jewelry when I was little, playing with glue and string, and I always loved the idea of making wearable art. And then after I learned how to make jewelry for real, it was the perfect thing to start using glass as a way to treat it like gemstones and set it in a traditional way. It's good to look for a beach where people have lived for a long time and where people have worked and ultimately littered, and that's how the glass ends up on the beach. And so it's good to find a beach that's got a lot of waves and surf and a lot of action that turns the sea glass over and over so it gets smooth. So right now we're on Great Cranberry Island, which is one of my favorite places to look for glass. It's a nice pebbly beach where people have lived and worked for a long time. Today is kind of a grayish day, which is one of my favorite kinds of days to look for glass because the glass really shows up. The sun doesn't drown it out and it kind of glows in the fog. So some days there's a lot of glass and some days there's hardly any at all, and that's part of the fun of it, is seeing what's out there. Sea glass is definitely a vanishing resource. I think people luckily aren't littering anymore, but there's so much plastic being used and there's just so many people looking for glass now. It's very, very hard to find, so it makes it even more special when you find a really good piece. So here's some that we found today. Some of them are more rare than others. The browns and the greens are easier to find, and the white, but some of these seafoam colors are a little more interesting. Find a lot of lavender up here in Maine. It's fun when you find a piece of glass with a little bit of lettering or numbers on it, because sometimes it can help you figure out how old it might be or what it was from. We just found some milk glass, or maybe jadeite. One of the nicest things about looking for sea glass is that you also find a lot of other treasures like seashells or pebbles or sea creatures. You see all the nature around you. So this is my studio where I have a lot of my work on display, as well as we make it all here. This is the sea glass jewelry I make set in sterling, and we do a lot with pearls and with gemstones. Sometimes I add a little bit of gold to the settings. We have a lot of different pendants and necklaces and earrings. So this is the studio part where I make all the jewelry, and there's a lot of tools, a lot of gems, a lot of sea glass, a lot going on, but it's a nice creative space. There's a lot of projects going on here. I'm working on a bracelet. I've got a couple of sea glass rings, So I like to leave a lot of the projects that I'm working on here, and then I leave other things here to inspire me for other projects that I'll have time for in the future. So here's where I keep all my sea glass. I keep it sorted by color, and I keep some sorted by shape so that I can find pairs of earrings when I need to. I also try to sort it by how soft and tumbled it is. I have the really rare turquoise, which I love, cobalt blue, cornflower blue. I have a few reds, English sea glass from Seaham, and pottery I also like to use. And this is where I do my designing, so I like to pull out the pieces that I'm working with. I usually like to bezel set my sea glass jewelry. I think it accentuates the beautiful shapes of the glass. The first step is to form the silver strip around the glass exactly. It's then soldered shut. Then it's soldered to a piece of silver sheet to back the setting. That is trimmed and then sanded until smooth. A loop is added at the top, and then after it's all cleaned up, the glass goes in and the top edge of the bezel is pushed over the glass to trap it in the setting. After college, I studied jewelry making in Florence, Italy, and when I moved back to Maine full-time, I began to use sea glass in my designs, and I'm still inspired by classical and Renaissance jewelry styles. So a lot of my other jewelry is very heavily influenced by art history, like with the Renaissance time and Byzantine art, so a lot of these pieces have a nice classical feel to them. I first started making jewelry in an old bait shed that was converted into a small studio. I was lucky enough to get my work featured in Martha Stewart's magazine, which definitely helped get the business off the ground.
Wonderfully smooth, opaque, gentle piece of glass with no sharp edges. Well, Lisa Hall has been searching for that kind of glass since she was 7 years old.
When I was very young, when I would collect it up here in the summers, and I would wrap it in wire or with glue and string, very simple things.
And today, Lisa's studio, a restored bait house with an ocean view, is simplicity at its best.
First step is to take a piece, and it gets wrapped in bezel wire, which is a strip made out of pure silver. It's very flexible. Then I heat the piece from underneath so that it is uniformly heated so that the solder will completely flow through the cracks. A diamond burr. This is little bits of diamond impregnated into a metal burr that is the grinder. Now I have a very wonderful career doing something that I've always loved to do. And I can live in a peaceful, quiet place and still be a successful businesswoman. Every so often, someone will come into my shop and not know what sea glass is. People are always so interested and curious, and often they'll come back years later and tell me they've become obsessive beachcombers and collectors. I'm glad I can still teach people how to respect the process and only to pick up what is really finished. And I get really excited to tell people about how it's made and how magical it is.